What happens when a forgotten shepherd boy is chosen by God to dethrone a mad king, defeat an unstoppable giant and build an empire, only to almost destroy it all from within? It's been roughly 1000 BC. The nation of Israel is in crisis. Their first king, Saul, has grown arrogant and reckless, completely losing the favour of God. Surrounded by the ruthless Philistine army, the kingdom is on the brink of total collapse. God tells his prophet Samuel that a new king has been chosen, not a warlord, not a seasoned general, but a boy, hidden away in the hills of Bethlehem. When prophet Samuel arrives in Bethlehem, he is looking for a king. Jesse lines up his 7 oldest sons. When Samuel sees Eliab, the oldest and strongest, he thinks, "Surely this is the Lord's anointed." But God's voice interrupts him. Do not consider his appearance or his height. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. One by one, 7 brothers are rejected. Confused, Samuel asks, "Are these all the sons you have?" Jesse almost dismisses the question. There is one more, the youngest. He is out tending the sheep. They send for him. David arrives smelling of dirt and sheep, completely out of place among his warrior brothers. Yet, the moment he steps forward, God speaks to Samuel, "Rise and anoint him. This is the one." The oil runs down David's face. In that split second, the Spirit of God rushes upon him. He's not given a crown or a throne, not yet. He simply goes back to his sheep. But everything has changed. Years pass. War breaks out. The Philistines push Israel into a deadlock at the valley of Elah. But this is no ordinary war. The Philistines have a champion, Goliath of Gath. For 40 days, morning and evening, this monstrous giant steps into the valley and roars a challenge. "Choose a man and let him come down to me. If he kills me, we will be your subjects. But if I kill him, you will serve us." King Saul and the entire Israelite army are paralyzed with fear. No one moves. Enter David. He is only here as a delivery boy, dropping off food for his older brothers. But as he hands over the bread, he hears Goliath's thunderous voice mocking the armies of Israel. David is bewildered. He asks the soldiers, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God?" His own brother mocks him, telling him to go back to his sheep. But word of David's courage reaches King Saul. Saul offers David his own royal armour, but it is too heavy. David strips it off. He picks up his shepherd's staff and walks to a nearby stream. David's hand dips into the running water of the brook. He carefully selects 5 smooth stones and places them in his leather pouch. He walks out into the valley. The giant laughs. Goliath scoffs at the sight of the boy. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" But David doesn't flinch. His voice echoes across the canyon. "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty. Today I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." Goliath charges. David does not run away. He runs toward the giant. He reaches into his pouch, loads his sling and swings it in a blur. The stone flies through the air, perfectly striking the tiny gap in Goliath's helmet, sinking deep into his forehead. The giant's eyes roll back. He crashes into the dirt, face first. David runs up, takes Goliath's own massive sword, and finishes the job. The Israelite army erupts into a deafening roar and charges forward. Overnight, David becomes a national hero. He is brought into Saul's court as a commander and a musician. He even becomes best friends with Saul's son Jonathan, forming a bond of loyalty that would survive death itself. But as David's star rises, Saul's mind descends into darkness. The people sing a new song in the streets. Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. That song becomes poison in Saul's mind. Paranoia grips the king. David is sitting in a dimly lit throne room playing his harp beautifully. Saul sits opposite him, gripping a heavy iron spear. Suddenly, with a scream of rage, Saul hurls the spear at David's head. David dodges it by an inch. The spear sticks into the stone wall. Saul tries to pin David to the wall with a spear, not once, but twice. It becomes violently clear. Saul does not just want David demoted, he wants him dead. The boy who saved Israel is now a fugitive, running for his life from the very king he served. For years, David lives like an animal. He hides in caves, forests, and enemy territory, gathering a band of misfits and outcasts. King Saul hunts him relentlessly. Then comes a moment of pure, terrifying opportunity. In the wilderness of En-Gedi, Saul walks right into the pitch-black cave where David and his men are hiding, completely alone and vulnerable. David's men whisper to him, "This is the day the Lord spoke of. God has delivered your enemy into your hands." David could end the chase right now. He could take the crown he was promised. But as he sneaks up behind the king, his conscience strikes him. He refuses to murder the man God had originally chosen. He cuts a piece of Saul's robe instead. When Saul leaves the cave, David steps out into the sunlight and shouts, holding up the cloth, "Look at this piece of your robe. I could have killed you, but spared you. Why do you hunt me?" Saul is broken by the realization of David's mercy. He weeps, acknowledging that David will indeed be a righteous king, yet the peace does not last. Saul's madness eventually leads him to ruin, and he falls on his own sword in a disastrous battle against the Philistines. David does not celebrate, he mourns the king who hunted him. At 30 years old, David finally ascends to the throne. He unites the tribes of Israel. He conquers the fortress of Jerusalem and makes it his capital. He defeats the enemies surrounding them. It is the golden age of Israel. But the greatest threat to David's kingdom would not come from a giant or a jealous king or a foreign army. It would come from within. It is spring, the time when kings go off to war, but David stays home. He is comfortable, entitled. One evening, walking on his palace roof, he looks down and sees a beautiful woman bathing. Her name is Bathsheba. She's the wife of Uriah, one of David's most fiercely loyal soldiers, who's away fighting David's war. David uses his power. He sends for her. Later, Bathsheba sends word. She is pregnant. Panic sets in. The man who once fearlessly faced Goliath is now terrified of a scandal. David tries to cover it up. But when his initial plans fail, he commits the unthinkable. He writes a letter to his general, ordering him to put Uriah at the very front of the fiercest fighting, and then pull back. Uriah carries his own death warrant to the battlefield. He is slaughtered. David marries Bathsheba, thinking he has successfully buried his sin in the grave of a hero. But God saw what David did. God sends the prophet Nathan to confront the king. Nathan tells David a story about a rich man who steals a poor man's only beloved sheep. Enraged, David declares the rich man deserves to die. Nathan looks him dead in the eye and delivers a line that shatters history: "You are the man." Unlike King Saul, who made excuses for his sins, David breaks. He falls to his knees. He writes Psalm 51, a desperate, tear-soaked plea to God. "Create in me a pure heart, O God. Do not cast me from your presence." God forgives David. The eternal punishment is removed, but the earthly consequences of his actions tear his family apart. Violence never leaves his house. The child born to Bathsheba dies. Years later, David's own son, Absalom, leads a violent rebellion against him, driving David from his throne in tears. When Absalom is eventually killed in battle, David does not rejoice in his victory. He weeps bitterly for the son who betrayed him. "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, if only I had died instead of you." David's life ends not in the glory of battle, but in the quiet passing of the torch to his son Solomon, who will build the great temple that David dreamed of. He ruled for 40 years. He was a poet, a warrior, an adulterer, a murderer, and a king. So why does the Bible call David a man after God's own heart? David's story is not in the Bible to show us how to be perfect. If anything, it proves exactly the opposite. God called David a man after his own heart for 3 reasons that you can apply to your life today. Number 1. God does not care about your resume. When everyone else saw a scrawny shepherd boy, God saw a king. God does not look at your background, your height, or your bank account. He looks at the posture of your heart. Number 2, your giants can fall. David defeated Goliath not because he was stronger, but because he knew the battle belonged to God. Whatever giant is standing in front of you today, fear, addiction, anxiety, it can be brought down with 5 smooth stones of faith. Number 3, true repentance changes everything. When David fell, he fell incredibly hard. His sins were catastrophic, but his secret was not perfection, it was repentance. When confronted, he did not hide. He did not blame others. He broke down and ran back to God. David's life shows us that no matter how forgotten you feel, you can be chosen, and no matter how far you fall, you can be forgiven. From his bloodline, 1,000 years later, would come the ultimate king, Jesus Christ. If the story of David inspired you, you will not want to miss our next video. We are diving into the story of a man who possessed supernatural strength, but possessed a fatal weakness that brought the roof down on his enemies. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us next time as we uncover the incredible, tragic story of Samson.